Calling all college students. Experience the deep and save on Kraken tickets with Student Rush. Join the list with your .edu email address and the Kraken will text you a discounted ticket link almost every game day. Register by texting STUDENT to 56314, and we'll see you in the deep.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another transmission from Signals from the Deep, the official podcast of your Seattle Kraken. My name is Piper Shaw, and we've got our lovely producer extraordinaire, Grant Beery, here. Grant, how are we doing?
Well, I'm doing well, joining you from Arizona today as I'm on my Thanksgiving holiday, but that's not going to get in the way of another episode of the show. So happy early Thanksgiving as we're recording this.
Absolutely. And maybe happy post-Turkey Day, depending on when you are listening to this. We'll have a little bit of Kraken hockey gratitude at the end of the show. We will be talking about with the players. I went around the room and asked some of them about their Thanksgiving meals, their ideal foods, if they had to cook, what they would cook. There's some good answers in there, particularly from one Will Borgen and one Brandon Montour. So anyway, with all of that out of the way, our co-host this week is the one and only Ian Furness. Hi, Ian. Thank you for joining us.
Piper, this is awesome. Grant, by the way, Grant's more than just a producer and co-host, man. This guy's he's like the do-it-all. Every business, I'm learning people, being now a Kraken employee. Every business has people that are like the MVP, the unsung heroes in this. I don't know what Grant doesn't do. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's not part of the training staff with everybody, but outside of that, this dude does it all, man. He does it all.
Thank you, Ian. Those are very kind words. I just try and make sure that I'm not bored.
Not bored, but very busy.
Yes, exactly.
Very busy.
Which is the best.
And now I'm hungry thinking about Thanksgiving and post-Thanksgiving and all that whenever people listen to this. Now I'm getting hungry. Oh, man.
Okay, well, you got a show to do later, so hopefully we can get out of here. So you got time to eat, time to quench that hunger. But Ian, it's been absolutely awesome to have you as part of the Kraken Hockey Network. You have been so great to work with. You're doing a fabulous job. And, you have kind of a unique perspective because you really carried the water for hockey in Seattle for so many years in the sports media landscape. So I wanted to talk a little bit about where your love for hockey came from, why it was important to you to support this sport even before there was an NHL team.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the kind words, and it's been awesome for me. When I think what Kraken fans need to know before, Ian stuff is that the people that put these broadcasts together and what's now called the Kraken Hockey Network, the people that, you see John and Edzo, JT, Piper, Allison, myself, but the people behind the scenes are unbelievable. I've worked in television for a long, long time. Piper and the broadcast crew on site, the play-by-play crew, they have a producer named Ryan Shaber who's second to none.
The best.
The director, Patrick Brown, is the same.
Incredible.
Their passion is great. And then Allison and I work with a guy named Scott Malone, who's our producer, who's the voice in my ear during all these broadcasts. And I say this with all due love. Scott is like a savant. He's nuts. He's Rain Man. He's he's crazy. He knows more about hockey and television combined than most people know about one of those two things that are so-called experts. This guy's crazy, but he's awesome. True. Yeah, and Allison's a rock star. We all know that. She's just unbelievable. So for me, this has been so much fun to be a part to. I'm the new guy. I'm the new. Everyone else has been here for 3-4 years. I'm the new person, so I came in with a little bit of trepidation and how can I fit in? But you guys have made it easy. The producers and the on-air talent, it's just so much fun. And I hope it comes across. This is our first year of the Kraken Hockey Network, and I think people need to know that we're just scratching the surface. We're an expansion team in broadcast, right, Piper? I mean, we're just kind of it's going to get better and better. Not that I don't think it's already as good as there is in the league, but it's been awesome for me. But for me, my love for hockey came from probably just growing up. My mom was born, and this isn't like you hear this from the movie Slapshot, Moose Jaw. She was born in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Period. End of story. That's where she was born.
I didn't know that.
My mom was born in Moose Jaw. She's a prairie girl. She was a competitive figure skater growing up. My grandfather, her dad, was he was a semi-pro hockey player. Probably now would be the equivalent of like the East Coast League or something, that level back then. But he was a great hockey player, and so that's kind of where I got my love of the sport. I grew up in Seattle, and my father was a television news anchor in Seattle, and so we had what was called cable TV from day one, like this as early as I can remember, living in Seattle. And
I love that you do the air quotes. Sorry to interrupt, but he did air quotes over cable TV. What a concept!
I know. Well, but two things, because cable was new then now it's people are cutting the cords, not me because I'm old, but it's because my dad was in the business, we had what was called cable TV back in Seattle. And then people that are old enough remember this. Basically, you got the local channels, which were only 3 or 4 at the time. Fox 13 didn't even exist. It was KSTW, and then like the PBS station, and then we got 2 stations from Canada, Czech TV out of Victoria, or BCTV, and CBC. So our Saturday nights growing up, every Saturday night in my house was a tradition. We would watch Hockey Night in Canada. Wow. And that's what we would do. We would watch Hockey Night in Canada. And back then it was only one game, started at 5:00. And every week it was either Toronto or Montreal or both together. The odd occasion we would get a Vancouver game. There was no Edmonton. That was WHA days, or Calgary. Calgary came in later and then moved. But that's how I kind of grew up watching hockey. I went to Totems games, Breakers / Thunderbird games, and I grew up with a love of hockey because of that. All my relatives are Canadian, so yeah, that's kind of where I first got the love of the game.
Did you have an NHL team that you followed, or was it just kind of whoever?
All right, I wish this is going to be bad. People aren't going to. Okay, I had 2. Montreal was one. And my grandfather and I would bet like a soda every week on Montreal or Toronto. He was a Toronto. He couldn't understand why a guy that, okay, again, my grandfather, like my mom, prairie people, okay, they're from Western Canada. How can you vote? How can you root for a team from Quebec? The French Canadians, and, there's still that little divide, right, in that country. And so he couldn't understand that. But I loved Yvon Cornwallier, Ken Dryden. Those teams were just so much fun. Obviously, the Flower, watching Guy Lafleur, and guys like that. But Vancouver was my other one. So I got to kind of keep that quiet nowadays. But Vancouver was my other one. I grew up a big Canucks fan. And the Totems, for people to remember, they left when I was like in 3rd or 2nd or 3rd grade. But the Totems were Vancouver's affiliate. They were their minor league affiliate. So that was kind of a natural connection. And so those were my teams growing up. And I finally I filed the divorce papers with the Canucks probably in the last 12 or 18 months. I'm done with them now. So, because now I'm a Kraken, because now I work for the Kraken. So we're done. We're done with the Canucks.
I also think, it's not really news to anybody. I think there's been a lot of Canucks fans in Seattle because before there was an NHL team in Seattle, in Washington, like that was the closest team to go see an NHL game. So I feel like in Seattle, Vancouver, different, but similar in many ways. Right. I feel like that's not an abnormal fan. No,
it's not. When the Canucks, Piper and Grant, when the Canucks went to the finals in 2011, our station, the flagship for the Kraken, KJR, we carried Canucks playoff games for about 3 years. I think 2010 through 2012-ish. And they got massive numbers. Wow. Like we had big radio ratings for those finals and for those teams. And yeah, a lot of people grew up with the Canucks. And I kind of bristle when I hear people say, "Oh, it's a new hockey market," or it's a new NHL market. But we've had some form of hockey here. Heck, there's a banner in the arena, for the Metropolitans. I'm old, but not quite that old. Don't remember that one. But from the Totems to the Breakers, and then the Thunderbirds, really, where the Breakers turned into Thunderbirds, they've been around forever. And then the Tips came into existence. The Portland Buckaroos, they were the rival for the Totems, and then they got the junior team a year before Seattle did. And so there's been hockey here forever. And the Canucks were kind of our connection. We've done some stuff on the radio and some other things, but yeah, we've had hockey. And so there is that natural connection with us in Vancouver. We need a playoff series between the two desperately. Mm-hmm. And if that ever happens, it's going to be out, and it'll change like that. What we're talking about is in terms of rivalries.
Oh my gosh, that would be off the charts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of both the Canucks, people who are longtime hockey fans in Seattle, and the Canucks, and also work on our broadcast crew. I don't know how familiar you are with JJ. He's one of our associate producers, and he used to travel with us, but he does most of our graphics and stuff. But he is a diehard Thunderbirds fan and has been for a very long time. And he played hockey like when he was growing up and everything, but then he was a Canucks fan. I think he maybe is still a little. I think he's both a Kraken fan and a Canucks fan because it was just so ingrained. But that's like another perfect example of somebody who's like always been a Seattle hockey fan before there was NHL Seattle hockey.
That's what you have. Yeah. Well, and you know what's cool is, you know what I love, guys, is when you go to a Kraken game at CPA and you see a lot of Thunderbird jerseys there, you know, and you'll see the odd tips one and other things like that. I love the fact that the Kraken Hockey Network is in all the markets the WHL has teams in. I think that's really important for us to have those connections. Heck, on Monday in Anaheim, it was like the Everett Silvertips reunion. I mean, Zellweger, that knucklehead Gudis, and then of course Mike and Al in the radio booth. So yeah, it's there's a lot of connections here. It's fun to see.
And then kind of on that note, but more talking about you.
Yes.
What does it mean to you, Ian, to like now kind of be part of this operation? And I know that this was an opportunity that, you know, you were really excited about, to be part of this crew and to be calling hockey with this team, as you should be.
Yeah, it was awesome. You know, when I was growing up and we were talking about, you know, watching the Canucks and being a hockey fan, and you know, that wasn't a cool thing to do for kids. I mean, I was a sports fan for everything. I mean, Mariners and Seahawks and Sonics were kind of my team. That's always like kind of my first sports memories is going to Sonic games. You know, so I was a Seattle sports fan growing up, and but always, you know, I loved the sport of hockey. We just didn't have our own team. I also, you know, knew early on that I wasn't an athlete or going to be athletic enough to do anything. You know, I was a good soccer player, like good enough, but you know, realized I was like the only guy on my high school team that had get drafted by the old Sounders in the old NASL. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's not going to happen either. So what do I want to do? I want to be a broadcaster. And, you know, growing up watching Hockey Night in Canada, or even listening to Canucks games with Jim Robson, you know, the great Jim Robson on the radio, but Danny Gallivan and that crew, obviously, you know, Bob Cole on Hockey Night in Canada, I wanted to do that. And so I got lucky. I took I'll always tell people, it's because young people ask about this. We may even have questions later. I took a $40,000 pay cut in 1992. I was a producer at Como TV. Yeah. So I actually not quite. It was about $35,000 pay cut. I left Como TV as a sports producer. I'd done that for a long time and worked in that business, and to do Thunderbird games, to do the play-by-play for the Thunderbirds, making about $75 a game. And luckily I had it.
That you were even being paid $35,000 working in local TV news.
Okay, Piper, that's it. Piper, as a producer, that's how much things have changed. I don't know if we pay reporters that anymore, but
no, I did not. I made 27 when I was a news reporter.
Yeah, it was crazy.
In Madison, Wisconsin, market 80.
Yeah, I was market 12, and I made really good money as a producer. And I left, but I was engaged. My wife to be, still my 31 years later. I took a swing at it, and I said, I need to do this. I have to do this. And I groveled, and oh my God, I'll have to find the tape and play it for you sometime. So I did Rich Waltz, who's now on CBS Sports Network and does a bunch of college basketball and stuff. Rich was kind of the part-time play-by-play guy for the Thunderbirds. And Dennis Bayak, who ended up being a longtime NHL play-by-play announcer, was the assistant GM, and he did some play-by-play for T-Birds. They kind of split it up. Rich was doing baseball too. And then Dennis got promoted to be the GM. And Rich went on to become the voice of, I believe, Miami Marlins at the time or something like that. In baseball, he was kind of more of a baseball guy. The job was open. And my resume tape was in 1992 when Seattle hosted the Memorial Cup. I did the final game on KVI radio in Seattle because Dennis said, you know what, you're going to do this. Seattle got knocked out the night before. All the boys went out and had a fun time. As I was with them as well, I was doing kind of color and kind of filling in, doing stuff, just whatever I could. I did play-by-play. That was my resume tape. And the Thunderbirds, I remember pushing it to them, saying, please hire me, please hire me. They knew me. I was doing stuff. I was working, you know, as a sports producer. It's the worst resume tape you've ever heard in your life. It is.
I'm sure it's not that bad.
No, it's bad. Like, it's not good. And I went, but they gave me the job, took the pay cut. My wife supported me. My fiance at the time supported me for a year. And I did Thunderbirds play-by-play for a year. Then I got hired by KVI to do both, and ended up going to Tri-Cities to do radio and TV for the Americans when Dennis got hired there as a GM. We had some unbelievable players like Brian Boucher, the crazy nut that is Terry Ryan now on social media, Damon Lankow. We had 5 first-round picks the first year I was there. I think we ended up having 20-odd guys made the NHL. It was an incredible experience, great time. And I said, I'm going to chase this dream and do hockey play-by-play. I've never been so happy in my life as doing juniors. Went to the IHL/AHL in Utah and did it for 5 years there. And then, never sent a resume tape out to the NHL because I learned early that, like, unless you know somebody, you ain't getting hired. Doesn't matter how good you are or not. But and then kind of gave up the dream of the NHL and started doing sports radio and back to TV reporting. And lo and behold, we get an NHL team in Seattle, and here we are.
And here we are. Okay, I have 2 things I want to follow up on.
Yeah.
One, what's the price on releasing this tape publicly? About $35K or?
I'll find it. Like Piper, you're probably the same way because like those of us in this dumb business, we keep everything. We're like hoarders. We're like audio. Now you're in the digital age, so it's a little better. I've got like cassette tapes everywhere, and like in our garage, and my wife's like, "Can we get rid of this?" Like, no. Can you even play it anymore? Well, I think I have a cassette recorder somewhere, so I'm going to keep it because I've got tapes from Seattle, Tri-Cities, and Utah. But I think that original one's around somewhere. I'll try to find it someday, and we can have a beer and a laugh over it because it's pretty funny. And maybe we'll release it on the pod just for giggles because it was a long way from doing that to like. And I was so thrilled for Mike Benton on Monday this week. Knowing the grind that you have in juniors riding a bus. I mean, until you've ridden a bus to Brandon and Regina and Prince Albert and Nican and all those places, until you've done that, you don't know what it's like. So Mike did that for years, and I did it for years. And so when I got a call a handful of games the expansion year, filling in for Everett, it was like massively emotional. I'm sure Mike was that way last night or on Monday, Piper. You were with him. But it was a dream come true. And to do that, Mike had a better experience. Mine was bad because everyone's got COVID. I'm there not because I earned it necessarily, just because I didn't have COVID. It was pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Well, Mike, I think he was definitely like the best day of his life, but I will say his energy was very locked in. Like he was very much like, I need to do an excellent job. And I couldn't hear it because obviously I'm on the TV broadcast. Yeah. Like from what everyone said, like it went well and everything. But I think
I heard he bombed.
Energy was...
I heard he was awful.
No, it was great.
I'm
kidding. Was great.
I'm kidding.
I was able to listen since I'm out of town. I didn't watch the TV broadcast. I was like, but I used it as an opportunity to listen to Mike, and especially with those 2 quick goals in the third period to put us ahead. High energy from Mike. It was a great listen.
Well, and he got to work with Al, which was great because Al did color for him for Everett forever too. So that was kind of cool. I mean, I thought that was kind of the cooler part of it is those 2 guys were doing a game together for like the first game they did together. First game Mike did together was with Al, which was pretty cool.
Oh, very cool. Full circle.
Ian, I also wanted to, you were talking about when, you were first getting opportunities with the Thunderbirds and all of that and how it meant so much to you to be asked to do those things. I just wanted to say I was never able to do it, but it meant a lot to me when you asked me a couple of times if I might be interested in trying my hand at color on a game with you before, like a Thunderbirds game. And unfortunately, we had Kraken games. Fortunately, unfortunately, so I couldn't. But the fact that you even thought of me and wanted to try to support me in a different kind of role, I thought that meant a lot to me, and it still means a lot to me.
Well, I think the cool thing about where we're at today in broadcasting and like doors have been knocked down and, what used to be, the way it was, like if you're a female, you wouldn't be thought of doing color or an analyst role like Allison does. Mm-hmm. And I think thankfully we've kind of got past that. And you're great at what you do. And I think there's a lot more there too. And, same thing with Allison, working with her every day. I mean, I go in every day and work with her and I learn something. It's crazy. But, people like Cassie Campbell, Jennifer Botterill and others that have just done a great job and have said, they've knocked down the door and said, you don't have to be a male. And so it's, and that was, because we still, I did a handful of T-Bird. Well, the T-Birds have a contract deal with with Portland, so they do a handful of TV games a year. So the last couple of years, I've done one or two. I kind of got out of it, kind of lost the vigor until this year for hockey, just because everything has gone on. But I was like, you know what? If I'm doing a game, they asked me, who do you want to have do color? And I thought of you right away. The funny thing was, the only reason I was doing it is because Mike does that most of the time.
Right.
Well, of course, you guys all had games, so I was hoping it was a national game. But Piper, never say never. You never know. Maybe we'll find one down the road and have a broadcast together. That'd be fun.
Absolutely, that would be fun someday. And it's like it's a good kind of opportunity for somebody like me who doesn't usually work in that role. I'm probably never going to just pop into the color analyst role in the Kraken booth, but like it's hard to get experience no matter who you are in this business, especially in different roles. Like if you do one thing and you're interested in other things, no matter kind of what that is, it can be challenging to get any kind of opportunity in this business, as you were saying. So anyways, even just to think of me, that meant a lot to me. So anyway, I wanted to move into a little bit of Kraken hockey talk.
You bet.
The old adage, I just heard you say it on the broadcast the other day, and we always talk about this, is if you're in a playoff spot at Thanksgiving, you're in good shape. I don't know what the percentage is, but that's usually a very good sign. We're not
76%.
We're not far off.
76.
Okay.
That's what I'm
not
told.
Quite there, but it's such a tight race in the Pacific right now. I mean, it's just a couple of points between most of the teams there. So I just kind of wondered what your feeling is on the trajectory of the team right now, what they're building, what you're seeing. I feel like we're starting to see kind of the results come from that process that it felt like they were grinding through for a while.
Yeah, I think what we see is a team that's a lot like the one that went to the playoffs 2 years ago. They're going to be successful when they get depth scoring, when everyone chips in. What the blue line's doing this year in terms of offense is through the roof. And then this team has to be reliant on above average goaltending. Well, Joey's far above average in terms of goals saved above expected. So he's doing that. He's taken over the number one role. There's no doubt. What they're getting from the back end without Vince Dunn is remarkable. And now we're starting to see some offense from up front. Outside of just Jared McCann and that line, we're seeing some depth scoring, seeing Berkey get a goal the other night. I don't care how it went in, doesn't matter. Hopefully that opens up the floodgates because they need him. Like, I know fans want to blast and everything like that. I get that. I mean, look, I work in sports radio, the worst, most negative, toxic place in the world. I know that we always want to rip on people, and I get that. And a guy gets paid a lot of money, and he's going to be under the microscope, and that comes with the territory. But the reality is, if they're going to be good, he has to score. He has to chip in, as do others along the way. But I like what I see. The consistency is not there, but it's a new system with Bilesma. But I think, the first year, the expansion year, they were out of it by December. Last year, technically they were in it in the spring, but they really kind of weren't. We saw too many blemishes. This team's hanging around without probably one of their top three most important players in Vince Dunn, and they're right there. So they get him back. I know Ebb's out for a while, which is brutal. But when you get Vince Dunn back to this team, oh boy, I think that they're going to be right there at the end. And they're still a high-end scorer away from being where they want to be. That guy's probably 2 or 3 years away. His name's Berkeley Catton. But I think that I like the trajectory. And patience is hard in sports, but they've kind of taken a slow approach, which nobody likes if you're a fan, even media/fans like myself, but it's also the prudent way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly that, like trusting the process to hopefully get to the result.
Right.
Yeah, you mentioned Jordan Eberle being out. In case anybody listening to this missed it, Jordan Eberle, the captain, is expected to be out for at least 3 months. Yeah. And his wife, Lauren, posted on Instagram that he's not even supposed to be walking for 6 weeks, not walking at all, not even trying to walk for 6 weeks. So Kraken will, without a doubt, be without him for a very long time. So that not only leaves, a huge hole in the productivity, but it does provide an opportunity, which was something that I talked to Coach Bilesma about the other day, too. He's like, well, I've had guys telling me they want minutes on the power play. They want to be on this line. They want this kind of opportunity. Here's your chance to prove it and to step up. So I do hope, it's a little early. Only a couple games we've seen at the time that we're recording this since Jordan's been out. But I do hope that those guys who claim We don't know who they are, but they want those opportunities. They want those minutes that starts to come. Because sometimes when you're under pressure and you have to step up, they do, so that's what I'm holding out hope for.
Yeah, I think listen, it's one thing if you're built, like I just said, they are still that one high end guy away, maybe two. I mean, even, looking at Anaheim on Monday, Anaheim's got some young guys that look to be, they're going to be scary in a couple of years. It's not going to be fun playing against those guys, but you need like true high end finishers. And Seattle, is built differently in that regard. But now it's an opportunity. But the good news is you can afford to lose somebody along the way. Like there's a lot of teams, if they lost a Jordan Eberle caliber player, they would be done. This team is so deep. Literally it's 4 lines deep. Even with the new coaching staff, that's still the philosophy until it changes. And so they can maybe absorb that in the meantime. And I think they will, especially when Dunn gets back. I can't emphasize that enough. Piper, Grant, you guys watch these guys, like Josh Mahura has been a warrior and he's a good player for them. But all of a sudden, if you have 3 true puck moving defensemen in all 3 pairs, you're not just a top 2, top 4. No, you're a top 6 in terms of defense, right? You have 3 pairs that can move the puck. It's going to be awesome when he gets back.
And the power play. To say that obviously Brandon Montour has been carrying the water on the power play, and I have no criticism about that player as dynamic as he is. However, Vince Dunn has been the quarterback on this power play when it has been successful for, these years to come. So I think also, his presence is.
Well, how about Riker
back there?
Riker's
been great. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like all of a sudden you're going to push, like Riker Evans is having a career year, and it's the reality is you're going to get bumped down because they got, and what a great problem to have. A guy that's in double-digit points for a defenseman at age 22 right now, and you're going to bump him down because that's where Vince. You're right, Piper. Vince goes to PP1 or just like that, or maybe Montour stays there. I don't even know what PP1 looks like anymore. Maybe you can tell me because I can't. But when you have a guy that can bomb it like he did Monday in Anaheim, whoa, you got to get him out there. Yeah.
Definitely. And also kind of going back to the Jordan Eberle thing too. I personally, based on my conversations with the guys, like I don't believe that Ellie Tolvanen and Oliver Bjorkstrand and Andre Burakovsky and even Yanni Gord are particularly thrilled with their productivity, to be honest. So I also, and I don't think that should be a secret, but you should be able to get a great deal more out of all of those players. And even if you get 50% more out of each of those players, or one of those players to 75% more, that's a huge difference too in that forward group, right? In terms of scoring.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like baseball. They always say play the back of your card. At some point, it does come back to that. And so at some point, 95 and 20, and those guys are going to get to that point, and then Sprong's going to give you probably a dozen or, 18 when it's all said and done. And that'll all pick up at some point.
Yeah. And then also I just wanted to touch on quick, Shane Wright scratched a couple of games, gets his chance. They say the coaching staff says they want him upstairs. They want him watching video. He's being a student of the game. They put him back in the lineup in Anaheim, and he opens up the scoring right away. Big old smile on his face. Just what have you thought about him lately?
I first of all, I do a weekly radio hit with a TV radio show in Vancouver, and they like to chirp about that all the time. And Shane Wright, high draft pick, what's going on? Well, first of all, we all know in the NHL that it's the hardest thing to do is an NHL draft. You're drafting kids that are 17 years old. You don't know how they're going to project. You don't know what's going to happen. But remember this with Shane Wright. He could still be playing junior hockey. He could still be in the Canadian Hockey League right now in the Ontario League.
He can't even buy himself a beer.
He can't even buy himself a beer. And for him to be where he's at, I've never thought he looked out of place until probably the 2 weeks before they scratched him. Like his first 2 years getting called up here and there in some spot duty, I thought my eyes told me that this guy looked like he belonged as an 18 and 19-year-old. Captain Canada's World Junior team. People don't understand. That is a big deal. If you do that, the pressure you're under, the face of a country, things that you have to go through, you mature damn quick. And he did that. And also at the same time playing with Bedard. All the circus that was around. So he's been through a lot in his 20 years and, 15 years or so playing hockey. And he's just getting started. I love the decision to sit him. I thought it was a good one because I think the question was, do you sit him or send him back down to Coachella? Like it was one of two. They sit him for 3 games. They put him back into a building, an arena, and against a team that he's had great success against. I mean, last time he was there, had multi-point game.
Yeah, I think 2 goals and assists. I think last time in Anaheim.
Yeah, and so they put him, they slot him back in there, and Myers did a nice job filling in. But like Myers doesn't have the ceiling that Shane does. Shane's got a higher ceiling. Slot him back in, put him back in. He looked comfortable on Monday. He looked confident Monday. And like we talked about it with Berkey, sometimes you just need one to go in. Doesn't matter how. Heck, Yanni had the same thing. Like, go off your face. Who cares? Let it go in. And then you're the first through the line. That changes everything mindset-wise. I love what he did, though, because Piper, we play the drinking game on the on television all the time. We're not really drinking on TV. But the Edzo net front presence comment, right?
Right. Oh, yes, 100%.
Well, what did Shane Wright do? First game back in the lineup, goes to the front of the net, gets a tip. Thanks for coming. I mean, how huge was that? How huge was that? That was just massive. And I think the fact that you see him get that goal and then he wins, and if you watch the broadcast, face-off wins aren't the be-all to end-all, as my friend will tell us, Allison. Yes. Mm-hmm. But a clean face-off win for a one-timer from Montour for the game winner, wow. I mean, what a night he had. I love the guy. He can play at both ends. I think they've handled it perfectly with him.
Yeah, definitely. I want to move into some listener questions. We got a bunch of questions. Do we have any final thoughts on the state of Kraken hockey at Thanksgiving?
I think we're on the upward trend right now. I'll just say that. I'm thankful for the upward trend we're on.
Grateful. The gratitude.
Very grateful.
Attitude of gratitude.
Yes, yes.
All right. So this question comes from @Schmizler, which is kind of a baller handle. So I like that. I felt like this was a good one to start with. The Schmizler says, after 1/4 of the season, who has been your unsung hero for the Kraken?
Well, I think there's 2, and I think they're both on the back end. I think Josh Mahura, number 1, solid player. They signed him as a 7th defenseman. He's played as a 6th defenseman because he's had 2 Stanley Cup champion, veteran. Allison mentioned on Monday, and I think this is a great point. When you don't talk about a player like that ever, that's a good thing. And like, he's not going to give you a lot of offense, but you don't talk about him. Doesn't get beat. Doesn't make mistakes in his own end. Can move the puck.
Just reliable.
Just reliable. And like they weren't equipped to have an injury of that sort in the back end the last 3 years.
Right.
Josh, Dumoulin, who we saw Monday, I'm sorry, this guy's just a better player. And Mahura's number 1. And I would put Riker in there too, because Mahura's not going to give you the offense. Riker has taken this massive leap this year, like a massive leap, and he's such a good. I have a soft spot for him. He's such a good story. He's got celiac. The challenges he has to have eating and staying healthy and all those things. My daughter has that. It's no joke. For that guy to stay in shape and to play at that high level, remarkable. And now double-digit points, all the things he's doing. I think those are my 2 unsung heroes.
Yeah, I think those are great picks. I was going to say Yanni Gourde, who maybe not like unsung hero, but I'm sure that the point productivity he's probably not thrilled with. But Yanni provides so much value to this team in his presence off of the ice, in his presence on the ice. He is a workhorse. The number of I always love this, but like every time that we have Yanni for a pregame bench interview, he's notorious for forgetting them. So notorious that we have to like let the other players know. But it's literally because he's so locked in. Like the PR staff will tell him while he is walking out of the locker room to set foot on the ice, he's on the ice for 15 seconds and it's already left his mind because he's just so committed to being like locked in and into his process. And that's just like a silly side note. That's not why.
You know what's funny is that's a good
representative of like how seriously he takes every moment.
That's a good connect the dots thing, because there's been a couple times when I've said who's doing the interview with Piper. And before pregame, or it'll say like, because our rundown will say, Piper pregame. I said, who am I tossing? Piper's with who? And they said, hopefully Yanni. I go, hopefully. And like, does he blow it off? No, it's just because he is locked in. Like, it's just like, it's not because some guys you say that and they're like, no, they're kind of be like some athletes, other sports, not Kraken, of course, can be jerks. Like just, they don't do it. Right. Now that connects the dots for me. That means that he's so locked in. I like it.
One time we were on the road last year and he was so locked in. He was literally standing in the net with his back to like the whole sheet of ice, just tipping random pucks in. There's like 4 guys left on the ice. We've been screaming on the bench. Like Jared McCann had to actually go get him, like skate over and go tap him on the shoulder. And then the look on his face, he's just like, no, because he forgot. And he always, so now it's like a running joke.
But it's that work ethic and that locked in that allows you to be undrafted and play in the coast and have to go through the jungle and all that stuff to get there, right? Yep. That's why he's an NHL player.
Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, the bench interview thing is just like a total aside, but I just think that it kind of speaks a little bit to he's so committed. Like even if the points aren't coming, his effort is always coming.
I agree.
So, yeah, love that one. Let's see. Next question. Grant, this one is for you.
Okay.
This one's from you for you.
Okay.
This one comes from @NordyGen. NordyGen says, hard-hitting question. How many takes did you have for your disclaimer at the beginning of the television broadcast?
Nordy Jen, thank you for noticing that that's me. If for anybody who has not watched our television broadcast, there's about 10 seconds for every NHL broadcast where somebody tells you, all rights are reserved, don't rebroadcast, don't redistribute, all that fun stuff, or, the National Hockey League is going to come down on you. Patrick Brown, our lovely director, comes up to me because I've done the podcast. I've if you call the Iceplex, you'll hear my voice telling you press 1, press 2. So he's like, I think Grant can handle this, and so I would say it probably took me about 30 takes, and not because I was tripping over my words or anything like that. It's to get that much to say into about 10 seconds is very difficult. So, yeah, I finally got it down to about 10 seconds, and now you hear me before every single game.
I love it. This one I thought would be a fun one for our group. This one came to me on Instagram from Floral Darling, and I think all 3 of us can answer this one. It doesn't maybe have to be Kraken related if you have a different one, but it says, what is a moment you had secondhand pride for a team or for a player? Something where it's like you have nothing to do with this process, but you're feeling very proud of them. The one that just came to mind for me was literally this is low hanging fruit, but Shane Wright stepping into the lineup, he gets sat, learns his lesson. He says, "I'm gonna make it count." Scores a goal, first period. Like to me, I was just like, "Let's go!" Like that just I just thought that was awesome. I'm like, good for you. And maybe not pride has nothing to do with me, but I was happy to see him do that.
Grant, you got one?
I would say probably the thing that I really see an immense amount of pride for is when I see players do things, I would off camera or anything like that, just for the benefit of the fans. I think one particular thing that comes to mind is pretty early on in our tenure here at the Kraken, we were having as a family skate or something like that, with some employees, and Gruby was out there, and usually any kind of public appearance, it's really tough for hockey players because, they're not the most outgoing, gregarious folks. But, as soon as he sees kids that want to have fun and that really want to hang out with him, that's all he cares about. I always get an immense amount of pride when I see a player, kind of get out of the mindset of, being shy or, being like, well, I'm only doing this because I have to. And instead, just really embracing, all right, we're going to have fun today. And we're going to have fun because there are kids here who want to have fun. So
I will go with, along those lines, a guy that just had a huge goal last week for the Sounders, Jordan Morris. Local guy from Mercer Island, plays for the Sounders, U.S. national team player in the past. He is type 1 diabetic. My son is type 1 diabetic. The work he does away from cameras, away from there's a lot of guys, including a former quarterback in this town, that only do stuff when there's a camera. And I think what you mentioned, Grant and others, when Jordan does so much, he meets with a kid after every Sounders game, home and away. And Piper, you know how hard it is for guys when they're away. You get on the bus, let's go. Every home and away game, he meets with a type 1 diabetic young athlete that was recently diagnosed with the disease. Does it quietly, provides gift packets for him that he pays for, the team doesn't. and just getting to know him over the years, I would put Jordan Morris. That's something as a father who has to see his son deal with it all the time. That gives me that type of pride. And I think there's a lot of athletes that do that. I'm sure there's a bunch of Kraken players that do stuff away from football. There's a Seahawk that I'm not allowed to mention, but there's a couple Seahawk players that go to Children's Hospital every week. Don't want cameras there. Don't want Seahawks.com there. They just do it on their own.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of athletes that do that, and that I think is more important than the ones where the cameras are there.
Well, now I feel like I should have picked something better than.
No. I think we hit all of them.
Yeah, the spectrum, the spectrum of and I think the theme there is, not having an ego. There's an immense amount of pride in a industry that has a lot of egos to see, players that don't have that.
That's a great point. Grant. Yep.
So I am picking this next question here because it almost relates a little bit to what you've mentioned a couple times here, Ian. So this question comes from Lanka Kitten. I think that is Lanka Kitten or Lanka Kitten. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And it says, when the boys travel, do they all eat all their meals together? Does a chef prepare their meals still, or is it all room service? Do they get to choose who they room with? As women, do you and Coach Campbell room together, Piper? First of all, no, nobody rooms together unless there's some kind of, like, maybe if somebody was like called up at the last minute and they just don't have an extra room and it's like something like that. But otherwise, nobody is rooming together. They might on like retreats, because we had on a previous episode where Berkey mentioned that him and Schwartzy were rooming together on their golf thing. So maybe I don't know what that was about, but like on the road for games, no, they don't room together. And then when they travel, do they eat all their meals together? Not necessarily. There's food. They call it the Never Hungry League, the NHL. There's food like everywhere. So there's food on the plane. There's like fruit cups on the plane and muffins and sandwiches. And sometimes there's like gyozas. There's usually like some kind of like appetizer thing that's like hot. And then they have meals like catered in, usually things like Chipotle bowls or stuff like that. That's always available after the game, like at the arena. So they have food provided to them, but they're not necessarily all like camping out in like a cafeteria, all eating together. And some of them prefer to do room service for lunch on a game day or at night and just hang out in their rooms. Some of them will book big dinner reservations and 3 of them will go, or 12 of them will go. It really depends. There's food everywhere, but when it comes to how they like eat their meals away from the rink, it's pretty much just like a normal person on a work trip is what I would say.
No rhyme or reason. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
And at home they eat courtesy the same kitchen crew that makes everyone food at the 32 Bar and Grill. Kenny Moriarty and that great group, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones that actually provide all the food at the rink. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Chef Brandon. Like it's so like if you've eaten at the 32 and you know how good it is, that's what the players, different menu obviously, but that's who's cooking for them too, which tells you how good the food is at 32 Bar and Grill if it's good enough for pro athletes, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think they will even.
That's a shameless plug for you, Kenny Moriarty. That's a shameless plug for my O'Day friend right there, huh? There you go. We went to high school together, Kenny and I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a lot older than me. He's like at least 3 or 4 years older than me. But yeah, no, we went to O'Day together. He's an O'Day guy too. And then Mick McHugh who is there kind of as well. Ran FX McCrory's, people remember that forever and ever. And Mick runs around and helps out too. They're all part of the Catholic Mafia in Seattle, is what they are. So they're great people, and they've been in the restaurant business forever, and that's why that place is humming. Yep. It is such a good spot. It is awesome. Yeah. Yeah,
the food there is so good. I also we're sidetracked, but I also love that they like change up the menu quite a bit.
Yes.
So it's sad if there's something you love that like leaves, but because we eat there a lot too, I like the variety, and it's always good. They're always stepping it up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this next question I thought would be great for you, Ian, as well, because we've kind of talked a little bit about this as well. So this comes from Colin Morris, and he says, Piper, kind of non-Kraken related, but I graduate next November getting my bachelor's in sports broadcasting. My goal is to work for the Kraken. What advice would you give to someone who's passionate about hockey, trying to get where you are? But also, I would assume where you are, Ian. Maybe even you, Grant.
Yeah, I think the advice I give people all the time is there's no path. There's like sometimes it used to be, and Piper mentioned when you worked in Madison and like small market TV, and you and I've talked and shared stories about that. It's it used to be like there's a certain path if you're going to get into television or radio or journalism, what have you. It's changed a lot with non-traditional media. You can see I would get involved. I know our friends say, like Allison Ballard is a young up and coming hockey journalist and works, for what, Davy Jones, right? And so, yeah, and the Sound of Hockey guys have their own thing. There's a lot of that stuff. If there's a good established one, I would try to reach out to them first, and then as far as broadcasting, do as much as you can, and be willing to go to a small market. Be willing to go to you're not going to probably start in the National Hockey League. You're not going to start in the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball. You're going to have to work your way up at some point. But take all paths you can and look at all opportunities you can. And I mean, I'm the weirdest. I was poli-sci. Like, I want to be a news reporter, and now I'm in sports. So yeah, I mean, so there's no real path other than try to find things to do. Internships have gone away a little bit, at least in our business and broadcasting. I'm not saying Kraken, but for us in like big media, it's kind of gone away. Fox 13, when I was there, we got rid of the intern program, and same with iHeartMedia. It's just there's some different things that have happened over the years. And so you have to kind of be a little more creative, but just open the door as much as you can, and never say no. Never say no.
I agree. I definitely think that sometimes people have a tendency to go into the broadcasting business with one very specific goal in mind. And it's good to be goal oriented, but this business is evolving so much, and you really have to just take opportunities where you get them, and really work your way up. Ian, you totally said it. Like, one thing that I always tell people is, I'm like, I hope you're prepared to like move to Sioux City, Iowa, because you probably will have to. And like I said, like,
Sioux City is beautiful, by the way.
It is.
No, I'm just kidding.
I actually interviewed there.
I love Iowa.
It's maybe not beautiful, but it's Iowa. It's not bad. In fact, I had a job interview there, and I had an offer from a station there, and they took me up in a helicopter during my interview to try to to go work there.
Let's go.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was
I left Seattle to go work in Tri-Cities. So, I mean, that's what it is. I mean,
I have most of my friends work in this business, and not one of them has ever gotten a job in their hometown. So, anyway, so I would just say take those opportunities where you can get them, work your way up, and it's good to keep a goal in mind, but keep your options open. And like Ian said as well, like the new media thing is also
big. It's big.
It's big. Like, you don't need some executive to tell you anymore that, like, oh, you can go be on TV. You can literally go start your own show.
That's part of it.
On YouTube. So anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode of
Super
From the Deep. We do have some player interviews about Thanksgiving that we will roll out with. But for now, Grant, Ian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I'm very thankful for you, too, as colleagues.
I'm thankful for you guys. It's been great to get to know everybody. What a great organization, and thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I'd love to do it again.
Very, very thankful to have both of you, and always thankful to do this every couple of weeks. So we'll see you all next week when I'm back in town.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will definitely have you back. And thank you to everybody listening. We're very grateful for the wonderful Kraken fan base as well, and everybody tuning into Signals from the Deep. We will see you next time. Will, what does your dream Thanksgiving plate look like?
The dark turkey.
Good call.
Mashed potatoes, gravy, stuffing, a couple dinner rolls, maybe some green beans.
What does a holiday look like with your family in your household?
Thanksgiving's usually over at my grandparents', and everybody brings stuff, and I don't know, all the aunts and moms and grandma make everything.
I know that you don't fancy yourself much of a cook, but if you were going to try to cook some kind of Thanksgiving side or item, what would you do?
Just run to KFC and grab the mashed potatoes.
Okay. No, you got to cook it yourself.
I don't know. The green beans or something? I don't know. I could do that.
Are you cooking?
For Thanksgiving, I don't know how to cook a turkey. Do you?
Oh, well, turkey is like the hardest thing, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure you can.
Do the mashed potatoes.
The mashed potatoes?
Yeah.
KFC? Are they good?
KFC's dialed.
Really?
KFC's dialed. What does your dream Thanksgiving plate look like?
Oh, my dream? Turkey. Yeah, turkey.
The white turkey or the dark turkey?
I like the mixed turkey. A little bit of white, a little bit of dark. Potatoes, maybe a little bit of stuffing, some green beans, and like what is that? Sweet potato, but like mixed in with like some what's it called, cinnamon, and you know what I'm talking
like
about?
the marshmallows on top.
No,
not
marshmallows.
that.
Jeez.
Yeah, some people put marshmallows.
Really?
On top
Okay, I don't put marshmallows,
like
but like just kind of that sweet, and maybe like a nice. Yeah, that's probably good.
What was a holiday like growing up in your family? Thanksgiving specifically, but Christmas if that was more relevant.
Yeah, no, everyone just kind of got together, picked the house, whoever was hosting that year, and cousins, obviously grandparents, everyone kind of went to the one specific place and got together and hung out.
If you had to bring a Thanksgiving food item and you had to cook it yourself, you can't go to KFC like Will.
Yeah, I'm
what would
definitely
you
not
try
doing
to
that.
cook?
I'm capable of cooking, so I'll do a nice turkey.
A nice turkey?
Yeah, I'll bring the turkey.
Have you ever cooked a turkey before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You
I
seem
figured
confident.
it out. No, I think it's just you look it up and you learn, and I think it's pretty easy. I think.
I agree. There are a few things in life you can't
you
just
stress
figure it
you
out.
stress a little too much on making a turkey. I think it's a little straightforward.
Yeah, I agree. All right, thank you. Yeah. Maddie, what does your dream Thanksgiving plate look like? Your ideal Thanksgiving plate?
I like stuffed mushrooms.
Oh.
Clams Casino. We usually do like steak. We'll do like I don't know, we switch it up. Sometimes we do ham, sometimes we do like filet, but usually one of those two. And then we'll do some turkey, but I don't really eat turkey, so I'll do lasagna. We don't do turkey.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a weird Thanksgiving dinner because no one really likes turkey in my family, so we just do like stuff we like. So it's like we'll do lasagna, steak, stuffed mushrooms, clams casino. We'll do usually like what is it? Sweet potatoes, but they're like candied.
Yeah, like with the marshmallows on top?
No,
not that kind.
No, with like it's like butter, brown sugar.
Okay, yeah.
And it's really good.
Cinnamon.
And then we have Jello mold, which is really good.
Like just Jello in a mold, or is it a kind of dish?
It's called it's Jello in a mold, but it's like I don't know. My grandma makes it. It's really good.
If you had to contribute a dish to a Thanksgiving table and you had to cook it yourself, Will said he's going to go to KFC and buy chicken. I said that's not allowed. What would you cook?
Garlic bread. That's my contribution to Thanksgiving dinner.
So you guys never really did like mashed potatoes and like that kind of traditional things?
Mash sometimes, yeah. I think they'll switch. Like we'll switch it up between mashed potatoes and and sweet potatoes, and we'll have stuffing too. But like usually the stuffing is used for the stuffed mushrooms.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
you ever had a stuffed mushroom?
I actually don't like mushrooms. It's like the one thing I don't eat.
Okay.
What?
A lot of people don't like.
You lost me on that one.
A lot of people don't like mushrooms. You'll like these mushrooms. If you ever get a try.
All right. Well,
maybe
you'll have to figure out how to make those.
Yeah. I know how to make them. I'm not good at it. My mom makes them good though.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Maddie.
Yep.
Signals from the Deep is the official podcast of the Seattle Kraken and a proud part of the Kraken Hockey Network. Hosted by Piper Shaw and produced by me, Grant Beery. Music by Benny Drawbars. Have a question for us? Send an email to signals@seattlekraken.com or call the hotline at 206-279-7810. Your message could be featured on an upcoming episode.